Hello, welcome to Conversations with the Mayor. I'm Sarah Hayden and I'm here with Mayor Donna Holaday. We have not been here together for quite a long time. I've been so busy, you've been so busy, but we're back at it again.
And I'm so glad to be here, Sarah. Nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you, and I'm glad you're using the resource again for getting some information out to the community. And today we're talking about the special election that is going to be December 9th. So this show will run right up to that point, so we'll try to get it out right away.
Wonderful.
So why don't you just tell us right off the bat what that election is for?
Certainly. The election on December 9th is to ask the residents, the voters of Newburyport, if they would be willing to pick up an additional $19 per year for a 15-year period so that we could put a full-size baseball field at the Knockmollen, which was displaced when we built the new elementary school, Bresnahan, and to begin work to repair and upgrade and replace, actually, the track at the Fuller Field and do some major work on drainage that's needed.
Mm-hmm. Now, these projects that you've been, these specific projects, I know there's some other projects in the community, those have been on the community's mind for a long time anyway. I mean, because they have been in bad shape. So maybe go into a little bit about the condition.
Even as we go back probably 9 years ago under Mayor Moak, there was, obviously a real need for more field space. Mm-hmm. He began looking at it. He put a task force together made up of a variety of school, youth sports people, Lizzie Reed, who is now our full-time parks administrator, just to begin to evaluate all of the open space in our community and if there were opportunities for us to, purchase land or upgrade our field space. Mm-hmm. But this is a very expensive proposition when you're talking about building, new fields. So one of the things that we did was to, first of all, bring Lise on full-time because, with 19 parks and all of these fields, you really need somebody taking care of our properties and working closely with the schools on managing all of our fields. So after the study and finding out that, we really were very tight in terms of field space, and more of our children in our community are playing sports and multiple sports. Mm-hmm. So, and I believe the number at the high school is 68% are engaged in one or more sports. Right. So there is no question that we have a very engaged, healthy, active community for sports. And part of what our task is how do we make it possible for children to play the sports that they want to play. Mm-hmm. And also have field space that adult leagues and other members of the community can use. So we had started working initially on the high school stadium. I mean, everyone knows that has been, since it wasn't part of the high school renovation project, it's been a struggle to try and figure out how do we get that field done. And Mary Ann Clancy and the Institution for Savings, stepped up in a very big way to start this campaign, and we were able to raise several $100,000 for phase one, which fixed up the visitor side. Mm-hmm. And then it was, okay, we need to take down the, did I say the visitor side, to fix up Newburyport side. And now we have these crumbling stands on the visitor side that need to be removed.
Yeah, they look awful.
They do. And I feel badly that for all the graduates who sit there on high school graduation day when those are your pictures and the background is this, horrific field. Anyway, so we strategized with where we were in terms of the amount of funding we had. And then what worked to our advantage was the legislature had changed the Community Preservation Act because originally under the area of open space, there's 3 areas that we fund, mm-hmm. Historic preservation, open space, and affordable housing, and under open space, the subcategory was fields. But there was a lawsuit originated in Newton, which basically said you can't use this money for field space. You had to use it just for open space. So it took several years for this to wind its way through the legislature, and very grateful again to Representative Mike Costello, mm-hmm. Senator Ives, who really supported this initiative in terms of allowing the CPC funds to be used for field space. So We were able to meet with 22 coaches over many meetings because everybody was my sport, my need, my field,
Right.
my census. But we worked out a plan with them and said, help us, support us, let's start with the stadium. Because if we put turf down, you'll have much more flexibility and more use with that field, with turf, and getting rid of the stadiums, expanding the field so that it can be used for other sports also. So we were able to build that consensus, get support of all of the youth sports and school sports, and went before the Community Preservation Act committee last spring, and were able to convince them that, with the money we've been able to raise and where the gap was, would the CPC take on bonding this project over the time period needed to complete the stadium project. And we were able to get a unanimous vote from the Community Preservation Committee. I'm so grateful to all of the youth and all the teams that showed up to speak in favor of this. And so we now have that problem solved, and design is underway, and that will begin in June, and will be ready, because it's turf, to be played on in the fall.
Fantastic.
Which,
yay for us, too.
I know, I know,
Yeah.
it's wonderful. We're still working on exactly what kind of turf, given some of the latest information that's come out about crumb rubber and all of that. We've met with the abutters, and so we're clearly addressing that issue too as we go forward. So now brings us to our next priority, which is baseball. We're in real trouble with baseball. We have a beautiful Pioneer League that is, raises children in our community to be, love baseball and to play baseball. They get, through, up through CBA League and go on to the Senior League, and then all of a sudden, they want to play in high school. And now we have one field which is being shared by freshman, JV, and a varsity, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So I know there was a lot of concern about displacing this field, but we needed a new elementary school. That had to be our top priority. I mean, there's no question about it. The school was in terrible shape and needed to come down, and the only way that we could make that happen was to build behind it and then take the school down after. So now we're working with the entire community, with the sports community, and asking. We had the school project. It came in under budget, on time, and we saved $3 million on that project that we did not have to go out to bond. And so we're asking now, would the people of Newburyport be willing to pick up $19 a year for 15 years to add to the original debt exclusion, to cover the Knockmollen baseball field, and to start doing the work on the Fuller Field track and drainage.
So it's really great because on your the city website, right the head top, right on the front page is information about the special election, but also the information that was presented at the meeting that we should be getting up soon on PortMedia. But if somebody wants to look for the details that Lisa presented and Ethan presented with the numbers, they're on there, and it's very helpful because it actually gives you an idea of the exact dollar amount, where it was before and where it's coming in. And I had not realized that it actually, even with the $19, it'll still be less than the original number. So that's
and
really
part of that
great.
reason is because we, obviously didn't have to use that $3 million, but we have worked so hard on the city in terms of finances and moving policies, procedures, and all the things that we've been doing to improve our fiscal picture, that our bond rating was increased to AA+.
Because how could you save $3 million? That's unbelievable.
Well, that's because the bids came in under. This was as one of the just as the economy is starting to recover and people were hungry for work.
I see.
So bids, they're not coming in that low now, but they did for both the Knockmollen and for the Bresnahan. It was absolutely perfect timing in terms of those projects coming in, and that's why both projects came in under budget. And so so you add that to the increased bond rating to AA+, better interest rates, and not having to bond all of that. So originally we had predicted $340 to $345 a year per the average taxpayer for 20 years to cover the Knockmullen renovations, the new elementary school at Bresnahan, and the senior community center. So then once all was said and done, we were now at $316, and so now we're adding $19, for 15 years to that fee, that charge, and that would give us a huge step forward in terms of finishing the work we've started.
Right. Actually, the fields too, even if they didn't, you didn't do anything with the baseball diamond in that field behind the Bresnahan, it was terrible.
It was in pretty bad shape. Yeah. I mean, so I think that's the other thing that people are concerned about is that the city historically has done a terrible job of maintaining anything. And so that has been one of the highest priorities of my administration, is that anything that we build, anything that we fix, will have a maintenance plan tied to it.
Yep.
So for example, when we built the new Bresnahan School, we added another full-time custodian. We're not going to build this beautiful new school and then not take care of it. The same thing with bringing on new municipal buildings or renovated, the wastewater treatment plant facility, the water plant, the library, and the capital plans that are happening there. We now have a much stronger, organized custodial staff, maintenance staff that are taking care of what we're doing. And part of the Fields project is, number one, having a full-time parks administrator, which when I started, she was 15 hours a week. And when I was first on the city council back in '02, our parks budget was $3,000.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you take care of anything with $3,000? So, then we've added the rail trail, and so it was really important to have a full-time parks administrator. And now we have a $25 per player maintenance fee annually per team, and that money comes into an account that is dedicated specifically for the maintenance of fields.
So that is added into the athletic, but how does that work?
The city holds on to the control of that, and we're doing all the scheduling.
I see. So, but how do you get the dollars? The players?
The teams collect it as part of the registration fee.
I see. And is it separate, or is it just included in?
It's included, and they count numbers of players and then write a check over to the city.
I see. Well, it is important, and I'm glad you brought up the job that Lise does, because I had not, it was hard to understand how it went from a part-time job to a full-time job, but I could see by the work that's been done and all the different parks and things like that there is a lot involved in maintenance. It's hard to believe that there was only $3,000. And it's no slight to the anyone who should have been maintaining. There just wasn't the funding.
There wasn't a budget.
Yeah, to maintain.
Right.
So how is who's going to do the maintaining of the parks?
We are building in maintenance fees, and we can hire contractors.
Okay, so you're going to hire.
Or we have people who are volunteering, and that's another real terrific program that Lisa started, where you want to take care of a garden or a spot or a park. You can volunteer. You can see the signs, for example, on the roundabout, that Latitudes is taking complete care of the gardens in the roundabout, and they look beautiful. And so we're looking to other gardens across the community. I know Job Landing, we had someone for Brown Square for a while. So it varies. People might do it for a little while and then turn it over, but it's adopt a spot, if you will.
And as far as the fields go, though, that's when I was listening to the gentleman who was talking about the fields specifically.
The consultants, Gail and Huntress, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. You have to maintain them and maybe reseed them and let them rest and all these things that I don't think we've done in Newburyport. We just play them to death. And I know there's some aerial photos that are interesting because they're sort of dead around the sides and
in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So this is the opportunity we have, is to get these fields back, and we're setting up maintenance funds. We know what we have to do. We have good consultants who are helping us identify the long-term plans of what we need to do, and it's also a safety concern.
Right.
When you look at 3 JV freshmen and varsity all sharing one field, they can't. So we've had to rent space in West Newbury, and so you've got all these kids jumping into cars. And that's not safe. So the city last year, when we found out this was happening, at least leased to own a van for baseball. So at least they can get kids over for practice, but they're still really limited on the times they can use the field, and because baseball fields are in
Right, they're not the first in the list.
right because
Yeah.
it's not our home field.
Now, was there some other consideration of possible ways to spend the 1.7 million or any of the other dollars? I've heard some people, and particularly at the school committee meeting the other night, people were felt that they hadn't had input on how the money was spent. Was there some consideration? Was there some other opportunity? Or can you speak to that at all? Because I know that there's been some speak about that.
We've been able to do more than we had anticipated with having, a $3 million surplus in one project and two in the other at Knockmullen. So we were able to add things to these projects, and that is why you have a representative committee, the school building committee, which represents parents, teachers, principals, school people, elected officials, and contractors, attorneys. So you have a broad range of people who were selected for this committee to represent, all the constituents within Newburyport, and they would report out. Or I would, or the superintendent, or the school committee representative report out to the community during school committee meetings, and also it's part of my regular update to the city council also in terms of what was going on with this project. So, for example, we have money to fix the parking lot at Knockmullen, but one of the most important things that we decided to do at Knockmullen was we were doing all this infrastructure, fire suppression systems and new fiber and handicap accessibility and new floors. But what was really going to be the benefit to the community? And that's when we did the auditorium. And the auditorium is absolutely magnificent. And I'm so excited about the multi-grade production of The Wizard of Oz, which is going to be our big ribbon cutting and really opening up the auditorium for the community. They can see so that we can see this, magnificent structure that we have built with the school, which we really needed also. And then we looked at, we were able to get additional money, another $450,000 actually, to help because we were really shortchanged in technology for Knockmullen. So technology became a real big focus for us with this money that we had extra because we were so far behind. We had like a 1 to 13 ratio in terms of device to student, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's just not even in the ballpark of where you're supposed to be. So by being able to infuse pre-K through 8th grade with more technology, we're now at a 1 to 1.1 device per student.
Oh, that's great.
So it's wonderful. It's wonderful, and this is where we need to be. So that was a big push, but we also set aside money in both schools for replacement of technology.
Right, that's excellent.
Because we had that surplus money. So there were a lot of other things that were talked about. And as we, for example, another thing is we found out that, how old do you think the library books in the Brown School were?
They were pretty old.
I think the average book was 18 to 20 years old.
Some of those are good books. I like looking at those
I know,
books.
but there's no reason we can't replace the old books, but the condition of the books. And so, we allocated funding from the surplus to be able to purchase new books for both libraries. So there were a lot of things like that we were able to do that, we didn't plan on doing. And then as we sat and looked and knowing that we really had a problem with our fields, we started having conversations about, how we could move forward. And one of the members of the school building committee, who happens to be a parent and very active in the community in terms of he attends every single school committee meeting, was the one who actually made the motion and said, I move that we allocate $1 million from the balance of the Bresnahan project to fix the fields.
Yep.
And then the city council said, well, we're going to make it 1.7 million. And so that's sort of where the process unfolded. And the school committee was informed during updates to the building committee every step of the way, and they also were informed that the city council had upgraded it to 1.7. In fact, they have a committee which is made up of the called Joint Ed, city councilors and school committee members that meet together and share those kinds of information.
Well, I know from the meeting that was this past week about technology, there is a lot of great things happening.
Oh, it was
really
wonderful.
Is. And we'll get that meeting out as well. It's we have a list of which things Football first. No, your show, of course, is coming first. This one and then the meeting the other night that you guys did that was so informative to get out before the 9th, of course.
Right.
So I had, I was doing some research just so I would know some of the numbers, and I had read somewhere that there is a shortfall for the senior community center. Is
Yes.
that so? Why wouldn't some of the funding that you had go towards that, or is that a different project?
It was a different vote. Each of
Okay.
the schools had their own
I see.
debt exclusion, and we felt that there was a direct nexus with the Bresnahan School because we built this school and we took away the only other
Right.
baseball field. So we felt an obligation to replace that with this extra money as opposed to making up the balance in the senior community center. And we're just starting the naming rights as they did with the Bresnahan School, and the Newburyport
Right.
Education Foundation raised significant funds as different individuals and organizations, and of course our wonderful local banks stepped up and had naming rights to the media center and the gym and et cetera. So we are just starting that process with the senior community center, and that should bring us up close to the 300,000 mark, if not higher.
That's great.
So I am very confident that we will be able to close that gap.
That's great. We maybe some of our interns would be interested in maybe taking some cameras and going through the schools too and seeing exactly, the improvements that have been made, because we haven't really shown it on local access, and some people probably haven't had a chance. I haven't even gone in there, and I've had some opportunities. I just have been so busy, but it would be great to have even a comparison, because we did have some footage done before about what was wrong with the schools and why the projects was important to do the projects. So it would be interesting to do kind of a side-by-side.
Oh, I think that would be great, because I know that there's a real demand for people who really want to see, particularly the Bresnahan.
Yep.
And, we did the open house before school started, and I think we had 500 people show
Yep.
up. We were surprised at the turnout, and
Yeah.
the response was overwhelmingly positive. Thumbs up, great job. This is wonderful, it's beautiful. I think for me, because I had been so involved with the project from when they broke ground to
Yep.
walking beams before there were any walls, and but I think when it really hit me was when the teachers could come in for the first time to the building, because you have to be careful of liability issues, and a couple of teachers started crying.
Oh. Yeah.
This is my classroom.
Yeah.
Because of where the conditions they were teaching in. We
Yeah, they
have
weren't
wonderful
good.
teachers, but and boy did they, no matter what, they carried the torch no matter what conditions they had to teach in, and I give our teachers so much credit for that. But to finally have the right tools and the right facilities to be teaching our children is so important.
We'll have to get a camera in there.
Yeah, because we, again, security is so different in the schools now than, unfortunately, than it used to be. But, people started, when they came in to vote, they wanted to wander through the schools. We're like, yes, you can't do that.
Yeah.
We have to have, and we do. We have great security.
Yeah, the doors are locked.
The doors are locked.
You have to
There's
press the
double.
button, yeah.
You have to press, and then there's two. There's a single. Come in through one set of doors, then you're
Yep.
halted at the next set. Get a visual,
idea.
and then you're in again. And there's cameras throughout the exterior, interior of the buildings. And actually, this week or next week, the feed will be pushed to the police station, so that the
that's
schools
very
just
good.
have to hit a button, and all of a sudden, it's it's in a cruiser
Yep.
on their way to the site in the event. God forbid that there should be a reason for the police to have to get on site very
that's-
quickly.
That's very good.
No, we worked through a lot of and that was other things that we could add as a result
Right.
of the surplus or the contracts coming in under budgets, that we could add some of these
That's fantastic.
components.
actually.
Because of course, we had our budgets all set, and then unfortunately Sandy Hook happened, and then we all met and sat down for hours discussing security. And I think we've met what everyone really wanted to see happen in terms of the level of security.
Well, we can add that maybe if we do some sort of tour, we can collaborate on what we should be showing, and so that the public can see, because there are a lot of people obviously that aren't going to get there, and it is nice to know what you're paying for,
Right.
even if you're not using it. And just to go back quickly, we have just a few minutes before we're going to wrap it up. When Lise did the presentation on the parks, it included other fields as well, the Cherry Hill And if people are interested, she's done a great job on exactly what has to be done for each one and the cost and where the money's coming from. And I know I think in the newspaper, maybe in one of the questions that was maybe in the blog or something, was about why the CPA funding wouldn't be used for the fields, but there is money from the CPA,
Right.
so they weren't aware that.
Yes, Cherry Hill, the soccer is being bonded with the high school stadium for their work. Unfortunately, additional estimates came in and they have a gap. So they're trying to figure that out, but they're coming back to the CPC for some
CPC, yeah.
money for this year. And we'll see what happens, and then we're going to try and, on the city, work with them around what that gap is that they need in order to move those projects forward, because soccer is just enormously popular, and they have done a tremendous job in terms of raising funds and just the care and maintenance of those fields. And it'd be nice to be able to get to this next level so that they can do the work that will help make improvements to the neighborhood and the traffic and some storage and things like that.
Yes, at the forum this week, there were a lot of good questions that came up about, from what the turf, the material from that, and then parking in the neighborhood over at Cherry Hill. So I think people had an opportunity to come and ask the questions that they had, which was great.
And there'll be more opportunity as we go forward. We just need to get through on Tuesday, and I'm hoping that the community will step up and help us move this next phase forward.
So voting yes means you approve of the
extra $19 per year for 15 years for us to put a baseball field at Knockmullen and begin work on the track, replacing the track and drainage at Fuller. And every step of the way, we will keep the public informed on where we are in the process. It
sounds very good. And well, thank you for taking the time and explaining all this so we can get it out to the community.
Thank you, Sarah. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Great. Thank you for watching Conversations with the Mayor.